Okay, so um, hello everyone. I am Eesha Gupta. I am with Discover the Universe. My pronouns are she, her, and we are an organization that makes resources for teaching astronomy. So today we have a short tutorial prepared for you so that you can bring Stellarium to your classrooms. Again, these slides will be available to you after the fact, but before I switch to the next slide, I invite you to scan the QR code or use the link to follow along with the slides if you prefer. So I see 3 folks joined in after I shared the link in chat. So before I move on, I'm gonna share a link to my slides in the chat once more. Okay. So what does Discover the Universe do? We are an astronomy training program. We are based in Canada. And we are composed of a team of astronomy professionals who organize workshops, webinars like this one, classroom-ready resources, and we create content for teachers so that they may feel comfortable teaching astronomy. I also want to note that Discover the Universe is a Canada-based organization. We are not all in one place. I am joining in from Toronto. Toronto is on the traditional territory of many nations, including Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, like Inuit and Métis people, and is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I do encourage you to think more about the land you are joining from, the consequences of colonialism and settler colonialism on your land. And you can find out more about your land on whose.land. Although I also want to mention that while talking about Stellarium, we'll be talking a lot about the Western-centric night sky. Modern astronomy is guilty of using systems that do have colonial roots a lot more as well, and have led to systemic erasure of night sky cultures. The sky is all of our all the sky belongs to all of us, and it would be good for us as astronomers, astronomy educators, and teachers to keep that in mind, that the sky we're using belongs to all cultures. And actually, on that note, I also want to note that we have more upcoming events and programming planned in the future. This is something you can find on our website. If you go to our website on Discover the Universe and you go to events, you will find an option to register for these upcoming workshops and webinars. And jumping on to the topic of today, Stellarium is something that simulates the night sky. So using this tool, you will effectively be bringing the night sky to your classrooms. So I want to actually open up the floor and ask you what you would like to use the night sky for. Please feel free to mention to type out your responses in the chat. If you would like to unmute yourself, please raise your hand and I'll ask you to unmute. Just taking 2 minutes for letting people type out their thoughts if they have any. I also have my own answer prepared, which I think naked eye astronomy has a lot of potential for astronomy education without complicated paraphernalia like telescopes or computer programs and so on that are hard to use sometimes. But I would like to hear your thoughts as well. Okay, so we have a response in chat from someone who runs a high school STEM club. Um, they say their students are interested in astronomy and they would like to lead a 1 hour session using Stellarium for their 70 students. We also have someone who would like to use Stellarium as a demo. But yeah, expanding it to student projects. Yeah, those are all great answers. Yeah, and this is we do have material for you to like plan projects and things like that. Um, so that's great. So I will move on and actually, yeah, so we are here gathered here to like talk about Stellarium, but what exactly is Stellarium? So it is a virtual planetarium software. It can run on a browser, it can run on a desktop, and it can run on a phone. I will be doing an overview of general Stellarium things. However, this is very much catered to Canadian teachers, and my content will be assuming that you are someone who teaches astronomy, presumably in Canada, although a lot of it will be generally applicable. So I hope you find it beneficial. Um, but yeah, so Stellarium is an interactive tool that will give you visual aids to understand and interact with the night sky. And this is why I started off my session with talking about the night sky a lot, what you can do with naked eye astronomy, in a sense, just going out there, looking up at the sky, and just spotting things. Um, However, there's also the fact that an open sky, night sky might be inaccessible. You might be in a position to not actually physically be able to go out and out even into a field or get like a horizon to horizon view of the night sky. Um, a lot of us might be living in cities with light pollution or high rises, which makes this a little bit difficult. Um, Planetariums are a great resource to, again, overcome this issue a little bit, but that may also be inaccessible depending on where you are, whether or not there's a brick and mortar planetarium. And sometimes you do have to rely on the shows planetariums offer, the programming they offer. However, Stellarium gives all of that control into your hands. You are the one using this tool, bringing this into your classroom, and deciding what programming you want to run and how you want to use it. So it is a very useful tool in that sense. So where can you get Stellarium? They have a website, stellarium.org, stellarium.org, and clicking on this link would, when you have the slides, would lead you to their website where you can find options for your operating system, whichever one you're using. I do want to mention a lot of school district firewalls might block download of this, and there are ways to get around that. Stellarium Web is a browser extension that Stellarium has, and that should be accessible on most school, even if your school has a stricter firewall. There's also a phone app. You can get that on Google Play or App Store or wherever you find your phone apps usually. But I will be catering a lot of this discussion. I will be using Stellarium Web for a lot of this discussion because that might be the most generic thing our teachers and educators can use. And it's also way less complicated if you're working with much younger children who might have issues with managing a lot of technical toggles and technical controls. So just giving you an overview of controls on Stellarium Web, everything will be present on your screen when you log on to Stellarium Web. Everything is very compact. There's a search bar, which you can use to search any object you would like. There are Toggles at the bottom, these turn on and off constellation lines, constellation shapes, this art that accompanies them. This option turns off the atmosphere. So it really makes it obvious that it is, in fact, the atmosphere that scatters the sun's light such that you cannot see any stars during the day. Um, and the reason sun can outshine uh, all stars in the sky is partly due to our atmosphere. And this is a toggle you can turn on and off in Stellarium to highlight that to your classroom. This also turns on, this option turns the landscape on and off. So this ground right here, so you can see what is yet to rise, how it looks in the sky, and so on. These two options right here are a little bit more complicated and technical, maybe for a K-12 setup. These are coordinate systems. These are grids that that one can transport in the sky um, to better chart it. It's very much like how we have latitudes and longitudes on the Earth. And this is something I will address very briefly later on, but just want to let you know that's what these two do. This is for deep sky objects. Deep sky objects are usually not something you can really spot using your naked eye. This is things like a star cluster, or if you have seen very pretty James Webb Space Telescope pictures, that is, you would see a lot of deep sky objects like nebulae and so on. Um, and this is for night vision, this is for full screen, and so on. There's a date and time setting, which looks something like this. This is to make it be in real time. These are all controls to change your, this is control to change your time. It's in hours, minutes, seconds. And this is a control to change your date. This is an year, month, day. Actually, let's hop on to Stellarium Web to actually play around with it and illustrate this for you. So right here, sorry about that. Right here is your date and time control. I can effectively pause time. Oh, I am perhaps hiding this control. So I will move myself right about here. So essentially, I can change what time this shows. Say if I change the month, the sky will shift to November 8th. I can change the time. I can do things like pause the time entirely. I can make the time go still. And then I can say I want to observe how the sky looks every month at 9:16. I can then toggle the month to see how the sky is looking at 9:16. Um, Again, the play button will then resume the time. To come back to real time, to come back to the current time, we can press this circular icon, and this will bring you back to your current time. There's also a slider here that controls how much daylight you can have, and this is another way to essentially toggle time for the same day if you don't want to use the arrows. I have a question in chat asking, does Stellarium update its database with newly discovered objects, for example, comets? Yes, they do have updates regularly. I would say if you have a desktop version, you will have to manually update that desktop to get any of the Stellarium updates. But the phone app and the web should auto update with any information Stellarium adds fresh. So, and I should also mention that because so the option for seeing comets and so on, there is a feature on the desktop version that lets you search meteor showers and see meteor showers and so on, which is not something that the Stellarium web supports. It is very limited in its functionality. But it will, I would say it still has a fairly updated database, and they do regularly update it, yes. Um, okay, so that's how the date and time toggle is. While we are here, I also want to show you how things you can do with the search function. So the moon is right there, but say if the moon wasn't right there, I wanted to search moon, I can type it there and it will kind of relocate itself to the moon. Um, Say if I move this, you see there was a plus and minus sign there, and now there's a star. So if I click on this star, now if I zoom in, for instance, it will, it won't move the moon. It will kind of, um, the moon will just stay there, as opposed to, say, if the star option isn't clicked in and I'm now zooming in, um, the moon moved away from my screen. However, because I searched moon and the star option is still there, I can go back and navigate to it. Also to note, I am using a laptop on my touchpad, and to zoom in, I use two fingers and scroll. To kind of drag, you can also drag this and go around, and dragging will undo the star function. So if you want that again, you should do this. Similarly, with changing time, if you don't have the star option selected, and if you change time, for instance, it will not, it will move moon out of the screen. Let's actually try that. So I don't have the star option selected here. And if I change time, the moon went away. It's still selected, but it's my sky is kind of shifting. It's like I'm sitting at a window and looking the sky move, and my perspective isn't going with the moon. But if I select the star option, you can then track, you kind of move with the moon wherever the moon goes, for instance. And again, you can zoom in and out to see where this is, like what is happening. Um, anyway, so those were some very elementary things I wanted to highlight. We'll go back to our slide deck. And I also want to address that Stellarium is something where you can change your location. I know we had some international registrants, and even though we have our focus will be Canadian teachers, I do want to highlight this as well, that if you are from um, a different part of the world and you want to see your sky, it will look much different than Canadian skies probably. And you can also stay in Canada and change your location controls to explore skies of other places. I have another question in the chat. Is the landscape image default? Will it show that same image no matter which location it is set to? Yes, the landscape image is a static. This is mostly aesthetic, I would say. The desktop option does have um, a toggle to, like, you can imitate being on the moon, but it doesn't change the sky. The sky remains of the Earth. They also have a setting for Mars, but it is largely aesthetic, I would say. And this is, again, an option only you can find in desktop to change that aesthetic. The web version just uses one default. Yeah, no problem. I also want to flag that they don't have light pollution for your area, like things like that aren't a part of Stellarium. Like they don't mimic actual weather or atmospheric conditions. So while pros of that is that, like, you can essentially use this on cloudy days in your classroom without having to mess with any toggles. But If you are using Stellarium as a plan on your planning step on going out and observing, do check the weather on how cloudy it is. What's visible in Stellarium might not be. Fog levels and air pollution, light pollution, and so on also affect visibility. Um, okay, so yeah, so if you click the location button, this is something that pops up on the screen. Your address would usually be um, written here, and you can use this search bar to change your to change the location. There's an option to do auto location, which if you have your GPS settings turned on your laptop, this is something, or your browser, this is something it will calibrate by itself. I also want to note something about Stellarium Web, that there is an Observe tab up top. It has two sub-tabs, Calendar and My Observations. And the calendar kind of shows you an overview of all the events. However, all the astronomical events of that month. You can change the month using this drop down here. However, I will caution you to double check this information. Stellarium is accurate in its mimicking of the night sky, but this I found out is untrue. We did not have a lunar eclipse on October 6th. We had one in September, I believe. But if you see an information here, I think this is a new feature, and it might um, get more accurate as time goes on, as they update their databases and update their website. But if you're using Stellarium to plan and teach, please tell your students to double check information, and I encourage you to double check information as well. Um, on the similar note, I want to highlight the next tab, My Observations. So again, this is a Stellarium Web unique feature. This lets you or your students to essentially create a logbook of observations. And I'm actually going to go back again to Stellarium Web to show you how this option works. This does require your students or you to have, or your class, to make an account, to make a free account with Noctua Sky, which is a third-party service. And I have the moon selected here. So it's giving me an option to click on the moon. If I have anything deselected, this is what the screen looks like once you're logged in and everything. Say I click on Saturn, it'll show me click to add Saturn. And if I click on this option, I get all of these options right here. So say you organized a project where you were having your students go out and make observations of the moon. They can use this feature. Say they are doing weekly observations, they can set date and time. They can also, there's a control to mention if they use their eyes, binoculars with binocular controls or telescope and so on. There is an option to change location and also rating and difficulty. So again, reiterating the point that this is Stellarium creates a virtual simulation of how it would look like if your visibility was perfect, near perfect. But light pollution or high rises and so on can affect difficulty in seeing. There's also the fact that certain objects might just be dimmer in the sky to observe, and Stellarium will reflect that as well. Like a pole star, for instance, would be much less bright than the moon. And this is something you can see on Stellarium, but having students go out and actually observe that for themselves, and then logging, rating on rating their observation experience or difficulty or visibility in seeing is something you can explore. And there's a section for your students to add their own notes. So this is something you can use as a digital logbook of sorts, but again, it requires you to make an account on Noctua Sky, which is the service. I also forgot to mention that Stellarium is free. Yeah, so it doesn't cost any money, but again, if you're on a school district laptop or on a web connection, you might have issues with firewall. So I want to briefly highlight the controls that we went over on the web, like their counterparts for the desktop version. Um, so by default, in the desktop version, this panel on the left is hidden. You have to usually take your cursor over there, and then this pops up. Um, the bottom similarly has a lot of toggles like it was in the web version, but it's a lot more information that you can control and there was in a Stellarium web. Downsides of that is obviously information overload, but upsides of that is you have a lot more control of how your Stellarium looks. So again, this is constellation lines. You can also toggle constellation names, which is not something I believe the web lets you do. Constellation art. This is both the grids, as I mentioned before. Here, this is landscape, this is atmosphere, and this is cardinal points. So this is this east, southeast, northeast, like you can toggle labeling on and off. Deep sky objects, this is for planets. Someone mentioned, asked before about comments. This is for meteor showers, and like this is a meteor shower search function, which you can use. There is also a toggle for exoplanets. So exoplanets are planets you wouldn't find in our own solar system. These are from different star systems, light years away. And this is something you can toggle on and off. It's obviously not something you can see through your naked eye, but they have this information in their database to give you a rough idea of where in the sky we have been finding exoplanets. There is a time control right here as well. And this one, instead of clicking arrows like on the web version, you can actually just click a button and fast forward or reverse time. Um, this play button then brings it back to normal speed, and this like sand, like hourglass looking shape brings it back to real time. Um, a bunch of toggles are, well, a bunch of options are here as well. The top one is for location. This is for date and time. We will actually see this option in one of the activities I have listed later, but for now, let's skip that. This is a desktop only feature. The search function is right here. It looks like a magnifying glass with a star. And there are other settings and other options that you may find useful, but I'm going to skip in the interest of keeping this discussion more general. So I do have some activities planned for you. We are pretty much past the basic Stellarium control overview portion of the presentation, and we are also at the halfway point for the webinar. So I want to check if there are any questions. Feel free to raise your hand or type something in the chat. I'll wait for a minute. Oh, well, a few seconds. A minute might be too long. How do you take screenshots? Okay, so Stellarium itself does not have a screenshot feature, I would say. So you would have to use your device's control for screenshots. So I have a video here that is a screen recording, and my MacBook allows me to do that. So you would take screenshots just like you normally would on if you're using the phone app, the way you do it on your phone, or the way you do it on your laptop or a desktop computer. Yeah, Stellarium itself doesn't have any particular screen capturing or screen recording features in itself. Okay, so moving on. As I mentioned, I have a screen recording here of the desktop version, from the desktop version. And I'm going to basically show you what exactly I have. So I was looking at the northern side of the sky, and I use the time feature, the speeding up time feature on the desktop to essentially see how a time lapse of this night sky would look like. And here you can see that everything is kind of going in a circle. So things do rise in the east and set in the west. We just saw the sunset. Here Saturn rose from the east and is moving towards the west. But the fact of the matter is that everything in the night sky is going around the pole star. It's not, there are stars in the sky that never set. They are called circumpolar constellations or circumpolar stars. And they go round and round around the pole star. Pole star itself never moves. So this is something that I think it's a very powerful visual if you want to um, show your students on how the night motion in the night sky works. Another thing I want to flag is motion of the sun, the moon, and the planets is on a set path across the sky. I'm going to actually play that again. Oh, apologies. They are on a set path in the sky, and they kind of move with the constellations as background. Um, you will notice that certain planets have certain times of rising and setting. Like for instance, Venus. We can't see that in the sky yet, but as the sun sets, you might see Venus pop up right next to the sun, or as the sun rises, you might see Venus pop up next to it. Um, this is because like in the solar system, placement of Venus is very close to the sun, so it is only visible 2 hours, roughly 2 hours before dawn and dusk, like sunset and sunrise, only during dawn and dusk, and so on. So, um, yeah, so this is something you can very easily use in class to illustrate how things are moving in the sky. Um, And there are a couple questions in chat, so I'm going to address that. Anne says, I use this program for teaching astronomy to MSHS students and adult public programs and have used Stellarium for years, mainly only basic functions. And they only focus on constellation stargazing, so not familiar with more in-depth. Yeah, so with a lot of in-depth things, it's uh, they are like in the toggles at the bottom, and they keep updating their toggles as well, so that it's more easily accessible to you. But while this discussion will largely be on curriculum connections you can make in a typical Canadian K-12 section, so I might not get to deep sky objects as much, like in the interest of keeping it very generic. But Stellarium also lets you zoom into deep sky objects and like look at them, how visually they would look out in space, and so on. So there's a lot to do, but I might not cover that in this session. You are more than welcome to ask or like send us questions later on if you have any on that note. Can you use these images as their copyright? So all of these are my own screen recordings. Some of the images are only for Discover the Universe for use, but you can find other free source images on the internet to use in your own presentation. That being said, these slides will be available to you, and you are welcome to use them um, for helping you make your own presentation. But yeah, so if you have Stellarium and if you take your own screenshots, you're more than welcome to use it. So Stellarium does not have any copyright issues, for instance, if you're using their screenshot in a presentation like this. Yeah. So this is one activity you can do with your students. Does the web version allow you to step time? So yes, it does allow you to change times and like do time steps, but it's an arrow button. It's an arrow toggle instead of a play and pause and like fast forward. So it's just a lot more convenient to do on the desktop version than it is on the web version, but it does have that feature. Um, okay, so I'm going to move on to the second suggested activity I have for you. And also make myself a little smaller so that you can see the text. Um, okay, so the second activity is motion of sun throughout the sky. Um, this is also the night sky is a great calendar. It exhibits seasonal variations. And the sun's path specifically in the sky is great for charting monthly or seasonal differences. It's great for tracking a year because the reason we have a year is because the Earth is going around the sun. So during the summer, typically the sun will be a little higher in the sky as compared to winter. What also changes is its north-south motion. For instance, like the fact that sun rises in the east and sets in the west is a pretty much universal truth, but it does have a north-south variation depending on the season. So from December to June, so when it will move northwards from winter solstice to summer solstice, and then it will move southwards for the rest of the year till it goes back again. So I actually did a little screen recording of the Stellarium web app, Stellarium web extension to show this. And this actually, Jeff, addresses your question as well of whether or not Stellarium web has lets you do time steps. So I'm going to move myself away from the time location just so that you can see me clicking controls clearly. Um, so going to this arrow and clicking on the up and down arrow will change months. So, and each one of the year, month, date, hour, minute, seconds, all of them have their own time thing. For all of them, there's a set time step, like the uh, lowest you can go for each one of them is a month, but then you can change the date to make it half a month, for instance, and so on. So if you don't want to do this activity, for instance, on the 10th, on the 8th of every month, you can change the month toggle and the date toggle as well. So replaying the video, and I wanted to address that I have a grid here just for visual clarity. I'm not going into the technicalities of what is an equatorial grid and what is an azimuthal grid. If we have time, I might. But just to give myself a reference point of where on the sky the sun roughly is, instead of just going out and like just having nothing and not having difficulty charting the sun. So we see that it's moving up and down, and this is around noon. This is around 12:30. So you can do this activity for different times throughout the year. Maybe you want to see if it's rising, if it's really rising in the true east or setting in the true west. You can pick a time around like 6 a.m. and observe sunrises, and whether or not sunrises at 6 a.m. every month or every week, and so on. So it's up to you how you want to cater this activity to your educational needs. But this feature does allow you to kind of have more of a visual support, and also, when it comes to activities with the sun, um, highly discouraging looking directly at the sun. If you have access to eclipse classes, you can go out and have students look at the sun using the eclipse classes. You will still not get the grid to look at it. It might be hard to chart and so on. It will also, like, even if you're looking at the sun around sunset or sunrise, even though it's much less brighter, it's still not safe to look at the sun. Or I would also discourage from taking pictures of the sun directly. So Stellarium is a great tool for observations of the sun as well. And it lets you, and it gives you a kind of a scale to make your observations from. So the next activity I had listed was phases of the moon. And like the sun, moon also has exhibits variations, though monthly variations. The word month does come from the moon. And it is also a great tool to teach your students about how light and shadow works. The reason we have phases of the moon at all is because there's a giant light source in the sky, that is the sun. Earth is the screen for the shadow to get projected. And the reason we get eclipses is also a play of shadows. And there's also a reason we only see same side of the moon across a month or throughout the year. And the reason for that is also how moon is positioned and how moon rotates and revolves around the earth, and how light from the sun falls on it, and so on. So actually, we have resources on our website that talk a lot more about phases of the moon. So I'm not going into details of uh, light and shadow exactly, but I am going to detail how Stellarium can help you in making observations of the phases of the moon. So if you might have noticed a screen popped up on Stellarium Web where there was a lot of information. If you are on a Stellarium desktop, this is an even more extended list of things. So there's a lot of information overload that Stellarium gives you, and it might not be relevant to your context. Something I highly suggest looking for the moon on the Stellarium web. Option is the phase and the visibility. So it tells you at how much phase, what phase of the moon is there. So for full moon, this would be 100%. For a new moon, this would be 0%. And the visibility isn't, again, the term is misleading in the sense of whether or not it's visible in the sky. It actually means rise and set for Stellarium. The moon might not be visible in the sky, but it will always have a rise and set times. As in, the new moon might be up in the sky. You will not be able to see it because it is completely backlit. I like to tell students that it is a bad selfie posture. It's not, it's completely backlit and you cannot take your selfie if the light source is behind you. But you still exist. So you will still, and by you, I mean the moon will still rise and set in the sky. So here are also some suggested questions. You can probe using Stellarium. How do rise and set times relate to the phase of the moon? So as I said, new moon is backlit. That means it's actually towards the sun. So it will rise and set with the sun, whereas the full moon rises and sets opposite to the sun, opposite to sunrise and sunset. So a lot of children's textbook would have a crescent moon at night, which might not always be true. You might see a crescent moon during the day. This is something you can explore with Stellarium. It's a myth you can address or like double check, fact check using Stellarium. Again, it tells us about the position of the moon with respect to the sun and what we can learn about shadows using this. So I'm actually going to also go on the Stellarium web app to show you another feature is the calendar feature right here. Actually shows you the phases of the moon throughout the month. As I mentioned, the lunar eclipse was a dud. We did not have a lunar eclipse on October 6th, but we did have a full moon on October 6th. And clicking on this will take you to that. And you can see the phase of the moon is 100%. It also has a new moon here. It has a first quarter moon here, and it has a last quarter moon here. So it will chart all the dates, all the phases, and so on. Um, and this is something you can use in your um, teaching. Um, the next suggested activity I have is on the planets. So, as I mentioned before, you can see certain planets at certain times of the day. Venus is only visible 2 hours prior and after sunrise, sunset. Mercury is never visible to the naked eye other than a total solar eclipse when the sun is completely blocked out, because it's so close to the sun that it's always outshining it in the sky. But you can look at Mercury on Stellarium if you want. Um, Something that's also interesting about planets is Venus also has phases. Um, and this is different from phases of the moon because the way Venus goes around the sun is different from how moon is going around the sun, which is moon is circling the Earth and then Earth moon system are going around the sun. So a fun activity to explore with your students could be catered on phases of Venus, what it tells us about Venus's revolution around the sun, its rotation period, its closeness to the sun, how it affects its phases, and so on. Another activity I wanted to show on the web app was Saturn, and essentially zooming in on Saturn. Um, and Jupiter will also have this. You can see Saturn's moons right here. And the orientation of Saturn in the sky also um, changes with um, as time passes, and this is because of how Saturn goes around the sun. So if I change months, you can see it tilted. So I'm actually going to pause time. So this is around midnight, and if I change months, you can see Saturn's orientation along the sun. In the on the Earth sky is changing. Um, Saturn's phase is always at 100%, so it does not have phases, but its rise and set times would change. And you can do these activities with your students. Uranus and Neptune are also planets that are visible through a telescope, but naked eye observations won't be entirely feasible, so you can use Stellarium for those. So I have in chat, Mercury can be seen with naked eye before sunrise or after sunset. I think I would again warn against looking at the sun directly for that. Um, Even if it is visible, I would be concerned in terms of it is too like its angular position to the sun is too close. Um, so I would caution against it and not discourage very young children to do it. Um, anyway, so I took these two screenshots of the phases of Venus 4 months apart, and around June it was at 51% phase, and last week it was at sorry, it was at 92%. So this is you can take these pictures on Stellarium as screenshots and do an activity with your students. So this is the last activity I have highlighted as a suggested activity. This is something you can only do using desktop and phone app. Stellarium Web does not let you alter sky cultures. It will only show you what Western astronomy uses. But certain sky cultures to bring to your classroom, if you're a teacher in Canada, might be Blackfoot, the Dakota, Lakota, or Nakota systems, Inuit, and Ojibwe. When this phone, desktop, and notes right here are based on what I found on my phone and desktop versions. I have usually found that what's available on the phone version is also available on the desktop, except I think I need to update my desktop app to have the Blackfoot sky culture on there. So you might find this to be slightly different if you get the newest version of Stellarium on your desktop, but do note that phone apps usually auto update if you have that control set on, but desktop app you will have to manually update, and they do keep adding sky cultures as they get more information. On that note, also, if there is a sky culture you are familiar with and Stellarium does not have, you can go on their website and find ways to incorporate your sky culture in there. So that is a neat thing. Um, so how to switch sky cultures on the desktop version? So we saw this option earlier when I was going through controls. Um, this is right above the search bar. And then a pop-up window will open up where at the top, you'll see all these options. So again, someone had asked before if they can change the landscape. So this is the landscape option is also here. There are other options here as well. This is for deep sky objects. Someone had mentioned that before. So Stellarium, like this sky, deep sky, like this galaxy, deep sky thing has all of these options there. So you can go and navigate to the star lore option, and then you will see a lot of cultures on your left side of the screen, and pick the culture you want um, to show the star lore of. So if I select Ojibwe, this is what the sky looks like. Um, it's much more sparse here, and the reason for that is um, this is an open source initiative. This relies on how much uh, we know about indigenous astronomy, non-Western astronomy, and what information exists, and then Stellarium updates that regularly. Um, you can use this feature to discuss importance of the night sky in wayfinding, in timekeeping, or tracking natural cycles. So calendar systems vary from culture to culture. So this is something you can address with students. For instance, if you're using the Ojibwe sky, um, your there are no zodiac constellations per se that you can use to have a zodiac system for each month, which the Western sky provides. So how do cultures like Anishinaabe people also use the sky, Chippewa people use the sky, and how would that change? Um, in terms of wayfinding, the North Star is important for the Northern Hemisphere. Um, so this is so they would use the Mang's loon, which is a constellation for the loon, to find the North Star and the true north, as opposed to Polaris and Ursa Minor. I have a question in chat that they can't find the Ojibwe or Dakota on their star lore. So I am on a Mac book, and it could be um, that they might have different versions for the OS, for different OS operating systems. Um, so that might be the case. Otherwise, I think they should have information there in terms of how you can reach out to them for like changing star lores or like incorporating star lores and their contact information. So I would reach out to them if changing OS versions or like checking on your phone for that version doesn't work at all. Um, but yeah, so versions might differ depending on the OS, I believe. Yeah, this is something I have ran into before with teaching with Stellarium, where we couldn't find the Ojibwe version on the desktop, but it differed from OS to OS. Yeah, someone suggested you may be able to regress to an older version to restore it. And yeah, yeah, thanks, Lindsay. And if there was something that was prior, that is, yeah, they should have functionality for that. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention is when you change star lore, Stellarium does give you a lot of information on the lore you are changing to. And also, I have partial screenshot of the Ojibwe option, but they also cite their sources. So if they have links to the Ojibwe sky map that they use, and this is a good starting point if this is something you want to explore further and design tutorials for your students or design modules for teaching. Um, so those are all the things I had as suggestions. We have 1 minute left in the webinar. Any questions, and I might be able to take very few. But I hope this was a useful session, and I hope you all gained something from it. I will also put up our contact information on the screen. So we had some questions which I couldn't directly answer. I apologize for that. There are limitations on time and scope. Are there any good scavenger hunts for students? Most of the scavenger hunts I have conducted scavenger hunts using Stellarium. Usually had to make our own, but the way we did it was um, essentially look up historical star like events and so on. So say a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse from the past years that your students couldn't observe. That is something you can see on Stellarium. You ask them to navigate to that point in time, orient themselves in the sky, and then observe that in Stellarium and so on. So yeah, I suggest looking up historical celestial events that you can then use Stellarium to switch back to that time and then do a scavenger hunt of sorts, like scavenger hunt throughout time and so on. Yeah, thank you so much for attending. Um, Thank you. Yeah. And I hope you all have a good evening, night, or morning, wherever you're joining from. I will stop recording.